most of the time, people are not interested in politics because they're interested in their own lives. They want the politicians to do their job so they can do their job and look after their families and so on and so forth. They don't have time to be interested. They're relying on other people to be interested. The other people that they are relying on are very often the fourth estate. They're relying on civil society, they're relying on the media to tell them what they should think and what they should be worried about in terms of their politicians and their political structures. I would say that in the UK that works fairly well.
The necessary part of democracy, the participation of the public. The further the public is away from the decision makers, the weaker your democracy is. And in Canada, we encourage full participation, and we receive it, especially on issues that are of not just general importance, but of vital importance to the public. They want to be involved, and we welcome that.
And through our select committees of Parliament, we invite members of the public to come and make oral presentation and written submission on the bills which are before Parliament.
We bring witnesses to committees. We have, if we're studying legislation, so we'll have experts in the field. We'll have people that are strongly for the legislation. We'll invite people who are strongly against the legislation. We'll bring in academics, government officials, anyone who might, and citizens. Anyone who might want to weigh in and influence the decision on how we look at the legislation or how we look at a report.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, thank you for the opportunity to testify this morning. My interest in the climate change debate was triggered in 1998.
Public engagement is critical, and of course you can't have everyone that lines up to become a witness, but we're very open in the breadth of experiences that we welcome into committees to become witnesses. Senators aren't supposed to be expert at the subject matter, so we require experts in the subject matter, and that would be the witnesses.
The media should also feel that responsibility to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago to, okay, if they know something is going on in the parliament or in the government, something that is not transparent, they should feel responsible enough to want to come and bring it forth to the citizens.
Bank of Jamaica Governor Brian Winter continues to push financial institutions to cut interest rates. Mr. Winter made the case last week at his quarterly press briefing and continued to do so when he faced Parliament's Public Administration and Appropriations Committee PAC today.
I think beyond the courage of the opposition, right, and the commitment of the government to transparency is the role, I believe, of the press in also helping to shape the effectiveness of the Public Accounts Committee. And that role includes not just what they carry on primetime news, but actually it has evolved now where they actually carry the sessions live on the public broadcasting station. So we believe that this kind of transparency has actually helped in the process of accountability. A lot of agencies and permanent secretaries, they make sure they are diligent about responding to the queries of the Auditor General, because guess what? They don't want to appear before the committee and to be scrutinized in the public glare.
It's a daunting experience appearing before the PAC, especially if you're the one in charge, because everything that a staff member does down the line that is incorrect, you have to answer. And when you answer to the parliamentarians, and you have to make sure that you answer correctly. The thing to do though is to answer or fix before the PAC. And if you fix properly, and if you answer properly, and if you satisfy the auditors, then you don't have to appear. But there are times when you have to appear nonetheless. And that is when it gets very daunting.
A lot of the queries that the Auditor General has are being cleared up before the PAC gets to it, because they don't want to appear before the PAC. So it's a kind of there's a fear. But sorry, we are humans, we smile a lot we're interviewing our government servants. We are not really hostile. We just want the information, that's all.
Are you saying it has taken almost 5 years to establish the physical assets of WASA? Your buildings, your wells, your pumps, 5 years?
I think that the verification exercise, it deals with respect to the several assets that the authority owns.
There's quite a bit of unevenness in how the different territories practice it. In fact, in some of the jurisdictions, they have a public accounts committee. They have a supreme auditor, like an auditor general, but that's about it. They've virtually admitted that in some of these jurisdictions, the public accounts committee is virtually non-existent. It doesn't function. It's not working.
You have a public enterprise committee in Trinidad. That committee could be perhaps more proactive to review all the financial statement of your $20 billion investment. And they need to go beyond looking at the financial statement. There where the citizens will be interested. You invested $25 billion. Citizens will be really interested to look at what is the outcome of those $25 billion every year. So prepare a summary by the Ministry of Finance, the owner of these public enterprises, give it to the Parliament, have some deliberations on some of the issues, and bring all the misuses of public funds, if any, done in any public enterprises. Then everybody will be interested in front of your television channel to look at what is happening in those reports,
Parliamentary scrutiny is where you critique the members, parliamentarians, where you don't follow their opinions, where you actually ask questions, analyze their opinions, and think about what they said.
Basically, like a critique, observation of the Parliament and the various things that go into the Parliament
that members make.
The purpose of the scrutiny is to get views from everyone, to see that everything is well thought out, to make a well thought out, informed decision. So one person alone would not be able, if one person was to run an idea through, there could be flaws and holes in there, and I think the purpose of the scrutiny is to get everyone else's views, to tighten up those holes, and to ensure like a well thought out decision is made.
Often, particularly in developing countries, there's weak capacity to not only conduct scrutiny at the parliamentary level, but at the executive level to frame public accounts in an appropriate, comprehensible and constitutionally appropriate way.
When we talk about legislative oversight, we need to think about legislative and oversight not only in terms of fostering accountability, but accountability of who? And I think we need to think about it in terms of each of those elements of the chain has to be accountable.
Often governments won't submit a budget in time. They won't provide detailed policy papers. The sync-up between the election cycle and the budget cycle in relevant years when there is an election is sometimes completely inappropriate as far as constitutional expectations for scrutiny are concerned.
Best practice in some really well-functioning democracies requires a 3-month period to review the budget. And 3 months period means that there is 3 months from the time that the budget is introduced in Parliament until the final vote. During these periods, individual MPs can study the budget, can ask questions, gather additional information. Committees can gather and give their opinion. That is not the case in Trinidad and Tobago. So far, the review of the budget is done in a much shorter period.
There's often a problem with the government having a preponderance of members in the legislature, ministers serving on a public accounts committee and therefore having difficulty in conducting any sort of objective scrutiny.
Is it that the Ministry of Finance is just comfortable with them, so it did not decide to do any value for money audit or performance audit or bother to invite tenders to see if you could get a more competitive price. You're just happy with them and you just go with the flow?
The contract just kept going
But
on.
why? No, AG. No, but AG. I want the PhD answer.
Because I know, because there's some things I understand. I understand the constraints of the public officer, and I think we need to be fair to them.
If I am the Prime Minister or if I am the Speaker, I'll not allow any of my ministers to be in any of the oversight committees. That's not wrong, but that's not good practice.
A minister can't hold a minister to account. If I'm the Minister of Education and you're trying to hold the Minister of Finance to account, this is my buddy in cabinet. So what are you talking about here? So keep him out, keep those ministers out, allow the backbenchers to have the clear look.
If a committee is concerned about an issue or wants to discuss about a particular department's policies, we can bring the minister to the committee and grill them, scrutinise them, question them, ask them all sorts of questions and put them on the spot. And that's the whole point of them, that they're there to keep a check and a balance on what governments are doing and what ministers are doing and how they're performing.
So it's all about safeguarding resources, safeguarding the public, working directly with the independent auditor to do so, and then also acting independently as a public accounts to make sure that you're doing all you can to provide the scrutiny and oversight and make recommendations that are in the public's interest.
The group of persons who are chosen to hold people accountable for their actions shouldn't just be for the government or for the opposition. They should be an independent set of people with a broad span of thinking.
I would like it to be from both sides because you have a balance.
Some people could be from one side, some could be from the other, and a few people independent.
The Public Accounts Committee is usually chaired by a member of the opposition, but all parties are represented on these committees.
My select committee, for instance, which is the Foreign Affairs Select Committee, consists of 11 people. So you have 6 government members and 5 opposition.
In a strong parliament, the committees see themselves as quite independent and able to criticise government, and even MPs that are members of the party government made up from are usually able to criticise.
But we're all very independently minded, and we don't get told what to do or told what to say. We can question the government and express our own opinions, and we do. And that is the way of pinning ministers down, and we shouldn't be afraid of upsetting or even embarrassing ministers on our own side. You can't be a minister or a shadow minister and be on a select committee. So at the end of the day, it is for backbenchers to scrutinise what the ministers are doing. So it has to be backbenchers.
Certainly in the UK context, it would never happen. You would never get a minister as a member of select committee, and I think there are good reasons why that would be the case, because they're the people we're supposed to be scrutinising.
So ministers are not members of committees at all because they have to answer to Parliament.
You should take evidence from them. I think they should come before the committee, you should ask them questions, but I would find it difficult to accept them as a member.
Well, one of the big challenges for members of Parliament, they're always generally very good orators. So when it comes to being an effective member of a scrutiny committee, what you need to be doing is asking questions. So that's the key, is to be able to have a line of questioning and to start with a very specific question. The more broad the statement, the more broad an answer you're going to get, and the more wiggle room you're going to leave for people. So if you give a 3-minute speech, then you've just left all kinds of room for the accounting officer or permanent secretary to answer the question pick and choose the way they're going to answer the question. The more focused the question, the more focused the answer.
We don't elect experts, we elect generalists, and therefore what we have to do is find ways to equip them with the right expertise.
So in some parliaments you have research units, departments. In other parliaments this is called a scrutiny unit, but in all cases it is the same function, where specialized staff is actually set aside to research specific areas, to scrutinize policies, and to make proposals from a very small 1 or 2 pages until more extensive studies which can go up to 100 pages in relation to specific areas. Yeah.
One of the things about the Public Accounts Committee that I've always felt is that it kind of deals with things after they have happened. The horse is out running around at 100 miles an hour, and now you were trying to deal with these issues and going back.
And the challenges I've seen in some of the Caribbean countries wouldn't be much different from what I've seen in terms of PACs in other developing countries. The main problem is the nature of the reports. That is the kind of high-level information that parliamentarians need to know and can act on.
Often there's problems with authority. The provisions of the standing orders or other documentation that govern the Public Accounts Committee's terms of reference may be out of date.
One of the misconceptions sometimes around oversight is that is the saying that the opposition complains but the ruling party rules. I think that is not correct. Oversight is a responsibility for the whole Parliament, all members of Parliament, from the opposition, independent senators, as well as MPs from the ruling party. Those MPs which are really MPs, they have a responsibility for oversight.